do not understand white supremacy, what it is, and how it works, everything else that you do understand will confuse you. In all of these 9 areas of activity, economics, education, entertainment, labor, law, politics, religion, sex, and war. Anywhere on the planet, minute by minute, day by day, all of the time, all of the time, all of the time.
Well, let me say good morning to all, and welcome to the CRCS with Mr. Neely
You do
Fuller
not
Jr.
understand white supremacy, what it is, and...
All right, you had a little something there, but that's all right. The Counter Racist Code Show with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr.
and I do not understand white supremacy.
And I am your co-host, Mr. Bobby. I don't know what's going on here.
Everything else that you do understand will confuse you.
Okay, we'll get that together here.
Areas of activity: economics, education, entertainment, labor, law, politics, religion, sex, and war. Anywhere on the planet, minute by minute, day by day, all of the time, all of the time, all of the time.
Okay, again, welcome to the Counter Racist Code Show with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr. I am your co-host, Mr. Bobby, and we do thank you for listening to today's show or tuning into today's show. I don't know why that keeps going on like that. Okay. All righty. Anyway, let's go on here. And we welcome you to be a participant in today's show, and we thank you again for listening to today's show. Now, to be a participant, call this number, 516-453-9921, and please be sure to press the number 1 button so that you can be heard. And when you are heard, after you press the button, you'll just get in line, give your name to the call screener, and then when we call on you, you can do that. If you are a first-time caller, make sure that you tell the call screener that you are a first-time caller and we have something especially set up for you. You can also Gmail me at the numeral 7, Mr. Bobby, BOBBY, at gmail.com. Chances are that your Gmail will not be read on today's program, but it will be put in an area where it can be read when the time comes, as you well know, or those of you who are regulars to the program. The callers come first, and then the Gmails whenever time permits. So it may be a while before your Gmail is read, but it will be read. So you don't have to ask me, well, why isn't mine being read? It follows in a rotation, and then it will be read unless the machine kicks it out. Generally, it doesn't, but if it hasn't been read in a while, it will be, and I'll let you know that. You can also join the chat room by going to blogtalkradio.com. You'll make sure that you click on programs, and when you do that, then you can click on where it says the Produce Justice Show. You click on that, and at the very end, I think it's to the right, the chat room becomes available, and you can get into the chat room. And occasionally, I will select maybe some of the conversation that goes on in the chat. But remember this, do not use the chat room to ask me a question to ask Mr. Fuller. That is what the Gmail and the number is for. Now, Mr. Fuller in the program will make tremendous references to his book, which you can get by going to producejustice.com. It is the United Independent Compensatory Code System Concept. We simply call it the Code Book. and you can get that by going to producejustice.com. I suggest that you get that, read it. As he says, at any point you may open up that book and read it, and if the information you find is relevant to you, you can use it. Some find it not relevant, but whatever, it's a guide for you to combat racism, which is white supremacy, so you want to make sure that you do that. Okay, I believe that is it. No information on the Carl Nelson Show. When they tell me, then I will relay that to you. Mr. Fuller usually makes an appearance by radio on the Carl Nelson Show, and when I get that information, I will, of course, relay that to you. Okay, I think that's all the house cleaning that I have to do. So let me introduce to some and present to others Mr. Neely Fuller, Jr. Mr. Fuller, good morning, and how are you?
Good morning. I'm still learning.
All right, very good. Okay, now, for those who are new to the program and for those who are regulars to the program, we have a segment that we call the Thoughts and Expressions on the Mind of Mr. Neely Fuller, Jr. Mr. Fuller, what are your thoughts or expressions or what's on your mind for today's program?
Well, it's a number of things, but one thing that I have heard recently is that this is Women's History Month. So I've been led to understand. I've seen it advertised as such. March, this is the month of March 2023, and they say this is a month that's set aside to make prominent or to recognize women. February was primarily Black History Month. This is Women's History Month, if I have been informed correctly. So I've been thinking about some items within that frame of reference. And the first thing that came to mind, according to the code, is that black females cannot function as women because females are the womb. That's why they're called, when they're mature, they are the womb of man, womb man. And I think that might be the origin of the base for the word. I'm not certain of that. But anyhow, black females are supposed to be the partners of black males originally. You got a black male and a black female, and they produce offspring, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And thinking within that frame of reference, under the system of white supremacy, the black male has failed the black female in his duties to the black female. And that's our record. I'm a black male. I know I have failed. What do you mean by fail? I failed to be what a black male is supposed to be when he becomes what is supposed to be a man. First of all, I failed to be a man because I was born a prisoner of war. So prisoners of war are not really men. They have been reduced. If they were men and they're in captivity, then they are reduced to the status of a boy. And this automatically makes the black female reduced to the status of a girl. So she cannot fulfill. She still has a womb and a vagina, but she cannot fulfill the purposes of a mature woman, you might say, or a girl who has become a woman on account of the black male has failed to function as a man. And so since the black male and the black female are subject to the system of white supremacy, they both have been reduced to just, you might say, mature babies, if you can call a baby mature. But with the difference that the black female can produce offspring, but she cannot function as a woman, particularly in behalf of a black male, because he cannot function in behalf of her, because he can't even defend himself or depend on himself. He is totally dependent on the prison masters, which is racist man and racist woman, in the system of white supremacy. So because of the existence of the system of white supremacy, no black male person is or can function as a man. Because black female persons cannot depend on black males to be or function as men, black female persons are forced to function as artificial men, husbands, fathers, brothers, etc. Black females are forced by being subject to white supremacy, as is the black male. The black female is forced, since she can't depend on the black male, to function as an artificial man. The black female is expected to do a man's job, or function as a man. And this is how the white supremacists have set it up with their prisoners of war. And so the black female has to function, first of all, as a female, but as an artificial man, or so-called husband, or father, and brother. She's a female, but she's forced to function as a brother, not a sister, to another black person, a brother. Because this is the kind of system that white supremacists have set up. It's artificial. So no black male can claim that he even has a wife, because he doesn't have anything. He doesn't even have himself. He's not a man, he's a boy in the system of white supremacy. There's no exceptions to that. That goes with the territory of being a prisoner of war. Illegitimate prisoner of war, of an illegitimate war. So according to compensatory counter-racist logic, it is correct to identify the white supremacists, racist man and racist woman, collectively, as being the people most to blame for the non-constructive behaviors of a black female person. Since we're talking about Black Female Month now, a Woman's Month. But black females are prohibited from functioning as women. They're just oversized girls in the system of white supremacy. Racist man and racist woman are to blame for this. And it is a special duty for every black male to keep this logic in mind. That anything that a black female does, because a lot of black males complain about black females, the non-constructive behaviors of a black female person, the white supremacists are to blame for that, or most to blame. So the black male is completely out of order when he complains about the black female doing this or doing that or not doing this or not doing that, when he was supposed to be her protector. but he can't protect himself. Protect himself against whom? The white supremacists. He's a prisoner of war. So they are equal in that position, except you have the weird circumstance that the black female also has to double as an artificial male. She's been assigned that task by default of the black male by, in history, the black male's history, allowing himself to be taken into captivity when, therefore, the black female was taken into captivity too, because the black male failed historically to protect the black female worldwide. So he shouldn't blame the black female for any behavior that she shows that is of non-constructive value. Bite your tongue, black males. Neely Fuller, you might be seeing a black female in what's supposed to be a key political position or something like that. I mean, she might be the head of an organization or running on the head of a school. She's given that title and whatnot by the white supremacists, directly and indirectly. And the black males say, well, she's not doing this and she's not doing that. Shut up, woman. You're supposed to be the woman, I'm the man. No, you're not. Not in the system of white supremacy, you're not. Black male, you're not. Nowhere close to being a man, and will not be as long as you're under the system of white supremacy. You will be a boy. Truth be told.
Mm-hmm. Truth be told. Okay. All right, well, that's on your mind this morning. Anybody want to speak on that or address that, you can. Here's the number, 516-453-9921 is the number to get in contact with the show. Let's move on with the show, and let's go to Darnell in New York. Let me see if I can get you in here, Darnell, as we get through these technical difficulties. Darnell, you're on with Mr. Fuller. What is your question there? Darnell?
Hello? Yeah.
Yeah,
Can you hear me?
Yes. Yeah, we can hear you.
Hello?
We also hear that background noise. Yes, Darnell?
Yeah, I'm outside.
All right, what is your question for Mr. Fuller?
All right. Yes, Mr. Fuller, I was wondering, why is it important of white supremacy to always tell the truth, no matter how?
Darnell, you're breaking up a little bit. Can you ask that question again?
Can you hear me now, Mr. Bobby?
Yes. Yeah. Go ahead now.
All right. I wanted to ask Mr. Fuller, why is it important to always tell how hard it becomes?
Still broken up.
Hey, Darnell, to tell you what.
Yes.
You're breaking up badly.
Is it coming in and out?
Yeah, you're going in and out. Yes, you are. You're breaking up so that we cannot understand what you are asking. Can you try it again?
All right, I'll call back.
Okay, thank you. All righty, 516-453-9921 is the number. You may want to try to call. Your usual gremlins are trying to mess up today's program, but we'll go ahead on. Hey, we don't have your name here, but we'll try this one. Let's see if we can get you in here. Good morning. You're on with Mr. Fuller. What is your question? I don't know your name because it's not up. Okay. Gonna be. So this is what we're working with today, huh? Okay, this is not good, Mr. Fuller. Well, I'll tell you what I'll do here. I will go to the Gmails until we can get something going on here. Okay. Let's see here. This comes from Miss Anonymous. this is a question. Mr. Fuller, do you think HBCU colleges is a good thing for black people? I find it strange that some of the deans at some of the HBCU colleges are white. Also, Mr. Fuller, did you ever go to college?
No. I had 1 year of junior college, and that was it. But because my junior college was almost like just an extended year of high school, almost a repeat of my 12th grade, where I was, because I had the same teachers that I had when I was in high school. Because on the colored side of town, apparently the white supremacists decided that's the way it was going to be. So I just had a repeat of my 12th grade, basically. And so whatever a person means by high school or college, or I guess when it comes to black people, the white supremacists at that time just kind of looked at it and said, we'll just call it anything, you know. This is so way on the other side of town, so what?
Mm-hmm.
They say, well, it's a repeat of high school. Yeah, well, we'll say it's college. In fact, we'll say it's at Harvard level. You know, what difference does it make? We said it. And that seems to be more or less the attitude. In other words, get them people out of sight and out of mind. Whatever they learn over there, they're going to all be dishwashers anyway, because that's all we got for them.
Okay.
That hasn't much changed either.
Yes. Okay, the first part of her question, do you think that HBCU colleges is a good thing for black people? And then she said, I find it strange that some of the deans of some of the HBCU colleges are white.
I don't find that strange at all. Everything that we learn, for the most part, comes from a white person, directly and indirectly. You can't get your credentials to teach a college in the Northwestern Hemisphere without directly and indirectly consulting a white person. That's what white supremacy means. If you show some credentials that's got all black signatures on it, and they haven't been authorized directly or indirectly by the white supremacists, those credentials mean absolutely nothing. That's what white supremacy means. Supreme. You don't have any credentials if you're black. You have no credibility at all about nothing unless some white person says so. Wake up and smell the coffee, blackie. That's the white supremacist view.
Mm-hmm.
You don't know anything worth knowing unless I teach it to you. You boys and girls, including your history. I got to teach it to you. You get on a plane, go somewhere, and walking around talking about, you know, this land is this and this land is that. Like, I think it was George Wallace, a white man, a governor, who made the statement that black people in Africa wouldn't even know that they're, if I quote him correctly, and this was recently on a film that I saw, he said black people in Africa didn't even know that they were in Africa. They're so dumb. They were, really, because somebody said some years ago to me, and I don't know whether this is true or not, the word Africa itself was something that white people produced that word. They say the base for the word is Afrik, meaning a fearsome place or a fearsome situation, afraid, Afrik, Africa. I don't know. You hear all kinds of things. in answer to your question a while ago, our educational system. How do we get educated? When do we know that we are educated? For a black person in the system of white supremacy, you're an educated black person when some white person says you are. So the historically black colleges, someone else, or I guess an individual black person, will have to ask him or herself the question, what is the value of the HBCUs?
Okay. All right, let me see if we can get this call again. Wait a minute. There you can see if we can do this. Hello, you're on with Mr. Fuller. Did you have a question? Because your name is not in front of me. Hello? Okay, I see we're having an issue this morning, but we'll work through that as we usually do. Okay, this question here from Diva2, she says this. Mr. Fuller, my question for you is, why do black people get upset when other black people speak about racism constructively? I've seen black people get violent when another black person mentions that all white people should be suspected white supremacists. Why do you think this happens?
Because black people are programmed to go at each other. I mean, not just in some forum when we disagree about something political or religious or racial or whatever it is, but black people carry guns for each other. So it's a no-brainer. We're trained that way. Across 4 or 5 neighborhoods, quietly go through a white neighborhood and talk about that other hood over there with those other people that look exactly like me, think exactly like me, and when we see each other, out comes the guns. We're looking at that every day. How does that happen? We should ask that question. Where does that come from? Well, the greatest society. Well, what is the greatest society? The white supremacists. That's where it comes from, including the guns that go with it. So naturally, the least little thing, I mean, we get in our meetings and whatnot, and we come in there all set to tear somebody else apart verbally. That's the main reason for being there with a lot of black people. Why? We're trained that way. The white supremacists, they ain't going to do nothing but get in there and argue and cuss each other out and call and do a lot of name calling. We still going to be running everything after they get through doing it. So what? A white person sitting in the back of the room who's being assigned to be there, I mean, nods off to sleep. Simply because they say they're not talking about nothing no way. I'm going to make all the decisions anyhow. They'll be fighting each other and all like that, and I'll take some pictures of it, put it on the 6 o'clock news. I mean, boy, hey, but really, a white person at a black meeting, they automatically, in the system of white supremacy, this is a complete waste of my time. But I'll go over there and sit there and make it look like they're legit. When they look up and see my white face, they'll think they're doing something great. That's how I've trained them to think.
Okay. Tell you what we're going to do before we get our new caller in. We're going to take a break here. You are listening to the Counter Racist Code Show with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr., and we are so happy you are going to do that. For those who are new to the program or want to get online, all you have to do is call this number, which is 516-453-9730. 9921. And if you have a question or a brief comment, just push the number 1 button, give the call screener your name, and you may get ready to ask your question. Please, ma'am, or please, sir, make it short so that we can get it. And hopefully you'll have a phone that won't break up. We had a caller this morning who we just had a bad connection. So please make sure your device is in order so that we can, your question can be understood by Mr. Fuller. Okay, all that may not be your fault now, because now I'm beginning to see hands up here, which indicates questions, but whatever it is, we'll get all that worked out. You can also Gmail me at the numeral 7, Mr. Bobby, BOBBY, @gmail.com. And your question will actually go into rotation, and at appropriate time it will be answered. Or when we have some glitches like we have been, then we can get some questions in. So your question will be answered in an appropriate time and manner. You can also join the chat room. There's some good conversations going in there about black males. Oh, yeah. There's some good conversation going in there. And occasionally I will select something out of that. To get into the conversations in the chat room, if you desire, just go to blogtalkradio.com, and you want to click on programs. And when you click on programs, then the Produce Justice show will come up. And when it does, click on that, and at the very end of, or to the right, I believe it is, the chat room becomes available to you, and you can get into the chat room. Now, please make sure, ma'am or sir, that if you do not use the chat room to ask me a question, to ask Mr. Fuller. That is what the Gmail is for, or the telephone number. So could you do that? And that'll be good. And if you are a first-time caller, by the way, make sure you indicate to the call screener that you are, as Piante has done in the deep South, and give the call screener your name, and then when your time becomes available, you will be on. So you don't have to be scared. Just make sure that you don't write me a novel or give a whole history of whatever you're talking about. Just ask your question so that Mr. Fuller can answer your question. Okay, can you do that? Okay. All right, let's get back to the show. And we have a new caller on the line, and I think it's Piante. Let me see if I got that correctly. Thank you, Bonita from Houston. And also a new caller. We'll get, we will get to you momentarily. Okay, Piante, I think that's what it is. Okay. Good morning. You're on with Mr. Fuller.
Well, it's close enough. You know, on this topic you got about have black men fail black women. Well, due to the culture that you have that's so predominant amongst that particular ethnic group, where you got women trying to raise boys to become men, and it don't happen. And then they're dissatisfied with what they have to choose to marry. Thus, the contending continues to go on. And that's the biggest problem. You can't expect a person to act out something if they never have been trained properly to act it out. And that's what's going on. You got males that just are not men. And, of course, well, if you don't ever have that bond and marriage of husband and wife, this problem continues and continues and continues. That's what I had to say. Thank you.
Oh, okay. Thank you. All right. Thank you very much. That's classified under VGQ. Did you have a comment for that, Mr. Fuller?
No, that according to the evidence, he's correct. I'm just going according to the evidence. And everything I've seen and heard substantiates that. And so that's how I see it. Now, if somebody can show me something different, I'll take that in consideration, because that's my duty. I always search for the truth, whether it's something that I personally consider a plus or a minus, because that's what the code is all about. And so I don't try to force it on anybody else either. That's another thing. And in connection with that question a while ago about black people at meetings and all like that, how they tear into each other, the code says don't do that. And this is a meeting place. This podcast right now. See, so we're not supposed to do that. It's not personal, it's business. Something's either true or false. You go with it. Always go with the truth. Someone started to call about that a while ago, I think, a few minutes ago, about what the truth is and whether you should seek the truth, no matter where it takes you, the truth. Because black people are going to need that. The white supremacists are experts at spreading falsehood, and so that confuses people, which is how you conquer any people. I mean, for a long period of time, you keep them confused. And so how do you do that? You say things that are not true. And so that binds anybody to the person who is an expert at saying things that are not true. You will always be subject to that person when you believe in what they say, and what they're saying is simply not true. You will be a slave to that person as long as they want you to be a slave. You have to know the difference between the truth, what's true and what's false.
All righty. One of the things that are going on, chats going on in the chat room was a question. Here was one question. It says, here we go. Why are black women raising black boys alone? Where are the men? Black to Death said this: don't push propaganda, please. The number one killers of black children, males, females, are black mothers. 29 million abortions since 1975. The black community was at its strongest with black male leadership. Too many black women wanted to go join the, quote, white woman suffrage feminist movements and ignored black male leadership so they could engage in whore house culture. Wow. Deep. Join the chat room, blogtalkradio.com. You want to make sure that you click on where it says shows or programs, and then the Produce Justice show will come up, and then when it does, you can click on chat and join the chat and give your 2 cents. In the meantime and in between time, we're going to go down to Houston, a new caller alert. Bonita, you're getting ready to get next, and you are on. Bonita, good morning. You're on with Mr. Fuller. What is your question?
Good morning. I would like to, the question or the statement that Mr. Fuller made in the beginning, the premise was that black men under white supremacy cannot be men to black women. The reality is that the black woman has been socially engineered by white supremacy, along with the black male being socially engineered. Black men in white supremacy have never been in a position to protect black women. Black men cannot, what black men tell me is that black women don't make them feel like a man. Okay, so the feeling of being a man is what black men have in white supremacy. Not having the resources to be a man doesn't even come up to play. I don't feel like a man. So black men are asking black women to make them feel like a man in a white supremacy system that have reduced them to boys. A man is traditionally in the role of being able to provide for the family. most black men, because black women have been socially engineered, we tend to be the high-wage earners, socially engineered by white supremacy. They give us these jobs. They put us in these positions. They pick us over black men. And so black men are left with a feeling, not I'm a provider in the system. And so I think what's happening is that men are fighting on whatever level that they can in the system to feel like a man. And I'll never forget this happened to me at a conference. We were having a conversation, and a black man said, well, I have privilege. And I said, well, what privilege do you have? He said, I'm a man. Now, you have to understand how my thinking was at that point. I didn't see him as being more privileged because he was a man, because in the system, on my subconscious level, I understand he was a man, but he wasn't the man. I watched my black man being subservient in a system when he's pulled over by the cop as a black woman. I'm telling him, don't say nothing, baby. Don't do this. Don't do this. Don't. I'm having to kowtow him down when he's being disrespected, pulled over by the cop. He can't even be a man in that situation, or he will be dead.
Okay,
so
let me ask you a question,
women,
Benita. Is there a question in there? Is there a question for Mr. Fuller in there?
Yes, the question is why black men cannot understand that black women have been socially engineered in this system, and we are in leadership not because we want to be in leadership. We have been forced to be in leadership. So that's
okay. We'll let Mr. Fuller answer that. Mr. Fuller?
Yes. All of the above. That's all it is. We got to admit the truth. The black male is told every day, directly and indirectly in the system of white supremacy, you'll never be a man in the system that I set up. You can be a boy or you can be an artificial female. Take your choice. You can't be nothing resembling a man. I'm the man, the only man on the planet, and I'm white. Digest it, Negro. You are nothing. You are nothing. A Negro male, Neely Fuller included, who's supposed to be analyzing me and whatnot. So what? I can tell him to his face he's not a man. And if he is, prove it. Prove it to me. Okay, Corral, any trace he wants to, I own the planet, and I own him. Blackie, call you any kind of name I want to. You can't stop me. You don't know nobody that can. Now, that's white man talking to black boy, Neely Fuller. That's an illustration I'm giving. The black female, when she stands over to the sidelines looking at that, she says, that's somebody's black lady's son. Okay? But he failed the test. He's not dealing with me or no other black person. That's why black males like to deal with each other. We compare ourselves with each other. We don't compare ourselves with no white person, period.
Okay.
Why? Because we know there's absolutely no comparison. None. That's why we want to always hide in the hood. The black person who brags about being king of the hood is bragging about a weakness. I can't function nowhere else. I got to hide, mostly behind a black female skirt. This is our tradition.
Yes, sir. Okay.
And the only way we can beat it is we have to beat the system of white supremacy. That's a tall order.
That's a tall order.
Neely Fuller and every other black person on this planet who calls themselves or want to call himself a man.
All right.
You can't be a man in the system of white supremacy. It ain't going to happen, period. You have to get rid of the system of white supremacy and replace it with justice. That's the prescription. That's what the textbook is supposed to help us do.
Okay. All right, Bonita, new caller, do not be a stranger. Thank you for your call. Mr. Fuller, there are some people that want you to answer this question that was in the chat. A question was raised, why are black women raising black male boys alone? 888 asked that question, where are the men? And Black to Death addressed it this way. He said, don't push propaganda, please. The number one killer of black children, males and females, are black mothers. 29 million abortions since 1975. The black community was at its strongest with black male leadership. Too many black women wanted to join the, quote, white woman suffrage feminist movement, end of quote, movements, and ignored black male leadership so they could engage in whore house culture. Some women wanted you to address that statement, Mr. Fuller.
Yes, I just did, and on this whole program, I started off this morning saying the white supremacists set that up. Now, if the black male got any complaints, and I'm going to underline this, about black females' behavior, I said that earlier today. It must have passed by a whole bunch of people. I'm sure it did. But I'm going to say it again. Every behavior, everything that the black male has to complain about, where someone that looks like their mothers is concerned, all right, black male, make that complaint to racist man and racist woman, the white supremacists of this planet. That's where your complaint goes if you're going to make one. Don't complain to the black female about nothing dealing with your condition. She is dependent on the same people that you are absolutely dependent on. And you, for the most part, want her to protect you. When from the very beginning, that's why I don't brag about black history, because I say, hey, you were strutting around talking about you a big tribal leader, and you can't protect your female? Nobody should want to hear that. I don't care how far back in history you go or when it happened. That train went off the rails. So no black male got no business claiming nothing about his greatness. No black male breathing today got any business bragging about anything in antiquity, not for 2 seconds, and allowed something like what happened and what we're talking about now to happen. The white supremacists, racist man and racist woman, took him over completely. And then black males, that's what I'm talking about, him, me, allowed, and we did allow it, too busy showing off to each other, that's why. See, we were too busy showing off, just like we still do, to each other, pretending to be men. That the white supremacists just walked right in and took right over. We strutting around, talking about our palaces and our great civilizations and our empire. All garbage. I'm saying that flat out. That's either true or false, because we did not protect the black female when we're going around with our chest stuck out, talking about we are great. If you're not protecting your male or your female, and you're a male, you're not a man. The female carries babies. The female can't fight off nothing with no babies they carry. They can't go into battle. The males are supposed to do that, be the defender and the provider. She couldn't go out and do all this and all of that, do the whole thing, be a male and a female, which is how it's turned out to be now in 2023. She's got to be it all. Go looking for a wife. Black females are looking for wives now. They know they ain't got no husbands. They say, well, we're doing all the heavy lifting anyway. And he's hiding behind our skirts, which they don't mind, but it's overburdening. I mean, trying to be everything. And the black male strutting around with his chest stuck out. We want to be eternal pimps. That's the black male. Eternal pimps. The white supremacist said, go right ahead. That's what we want you to be. Pimp your mother and your grandmother and your sister. And any little nappy head offspring that you have, pimp them too. And keep doing it, because that's how I train you, black male. I put the whip on you so bad that now you want to be a pretender forever. You don't want to be the real thing.
Wow. Did you say pretender hiding behind the skirt of the black woman?
Always has. I mean, back on the plantation and whatnot in the northwestern hemisphere, I mean, when the white supremacists came around with the lynch mob and all like that, there's an old saying, Negro in, but it's the N-word, in the woodpile. And the black female would go out there, I don't know where he is. I don't know where Amos is. I mean, he was around here somewhere. I ain't seen him this morning. He must be on the other side of the field. He's hiding in the woodpile. So the posse goes out there looking for him way out in the field and say, well, he must have run off, or when we catch him, we're going to lynch him. Well, she knew that. That's why she went out there. I mean, it headed all that off. Sent the master in the other direction. She's his protector, my protector, Neely Fuller Jr.
Okay. All I can say is this. Anyone that wants to know what's going on, the chat room is fire this morning. Get up in there and check it out and see what's going on. On the other side of the hour, we're going to have, what's his name? Ro Asakem. We're going to get you in Louisiana. But we're going to close out this hour, and Mr. Fuller did make mention of it, but we're going to close out this hour with Mr. Fuller speaking about his book. Mr. Fuller, address that with your book.
Yes. Now, the things I'm talking about now, a lot of it is in the book. The things that I read this morning, that's something I jotted down last night. So you won't find that in there, said in that exact way. But the thing about the black male being a failure, but that's failure so far. We're not a failed people because in our own meager way, we keep clawing away at the system. At some point, you keep doing that, the theory is the system is going to collapse. You just keep going. Every scientist understands that. Failures are just finding out what, like some scientists have said, what doesn't work. So you don't really fail as long as you keep going in what you're trying to do. A lot of animals, which is what they call us, they, meaning the white supremacists, understand that principle. So in that vein, you can say, yeah, you can call us animals, but we know what we're doing, or we think we do, And the main thing is we're going to keep trying to do what we think we ought to be doing. And prisoners of war should always be thinking of not being what? Prisoners of war. So once you discover that, you don't try to run away from the fact that you are in your mind when you're still that. Pretend you're not in prison. You work on getting out of the prison because that's your duty. It's an illegitimate prison, the system of white supremacy, and we are illegitimate prisoners of war. We can call ourselves that because that's the truth. We were in captivity when we were born because the people that came before us, everybody who's on the planet now who's of color, was in captivity to the system of white supremacy. The textbook for victims of white supremacy is to help us not be victims, to keep going, and the tools to do it, what to say, what to do as individual people. You can get the book by going to producejustice.com. Producejustice.com. It's for people who think of themselves, and I say accurately so, non-white people, people of color, black people, as victims of white supremacy. Textbook, workbook for thought, for speech, for action, for victims of white supremacy. If you consider yourself not to be a victim of white supremacy, the work is not for you. If you say that you are independent, that you are free, that you do what you want to and go where you want to, that you don't have to answer to no white man about nothing or white woman, then the book is not for you. And you should write a book. I'll just put that as an add-on about how you did it. If you're black, you're not subject to the system of white supremacy, and you're black, and you're not subject to the system of white supremacy in any way, form, any area of activity, any one of the 9 areas, economics, education. You don't have to talk directly or indirectly to no white person about being educated. You don't have to directly or indirectly be associated with any white person when it comes to money, economics, when it comes to a roof over your head. You're a magic black person. And everybody who is of color should be, including me, Neely Fuller Jr., at your doorstep right this minute to find out what? How you did it. You didn't have to interact with no white people at all. And when you did, if you did, you handled them like they were the houseboy.
Okay. Mr. Fuller, we're up against the break, so can you give those 7 other areas?
Justice.com.
Yeah, give those 7 other areas before we sign up on the first hour. You stopped off at economics. You know, the 9 areas of activity.
Oh.
Yeah,
yes.
You stopped
economics,
off. Yeah, go ahead.
Yes, economics, education, entertainment. A lot of black people in entertainment. You didn't have to talk to no white people in order to get that top billing. Labor, law, politics, relationships between people. That's what politics is. Religion, sex, war. You don't have to interact with any white people, and when you do, what you say goes as a black person.
Mm-hmm.
Wherever you go on the planet.
Okay.
You're not in the system of white supremacy. You have beat it. Every black person should, including Neely Fuller, we should be right at your doorstep right now finding out how you pulled that off.
Yes, sir. Okay, got to leave it there. So for those who have to go, sorry that you have to go, but, man, hopefully you'll tune in next week. But for those who are going to stay, we're going to have more than that. We got some double barrel action going on today because 888 Rita is in and Constructive Actions Island is in. Woo! Have mercy, all in the chat room. So we made a lot of mistakes today, and the demons were out, but guess what? We made it through the first hour. So those of you who have to go ahead. We'll see you next week. But for those who are going to stay, stick and stay. Don't go away. The Counter Racist Code Show with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr. will continue in 5 seconds. All righty. Good morning and welcome to the second hour of the Counter Racist Code Show with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr. I am your co-host, Mr. Bobby, and my phone handle is hot because there's been some hot stuff going on today. If you missed the first hour or know somebody who did, make sure that they get that first hour because it was hot and heavy, but it's good. This is how we learn. We're all still learning. Okay, Mr. Fuller is on the line, and he will be taking your questions or your Gmails. And for those who want to call in, please do this as we see that the calls are beginning to come in. Call this number, 516-453-9921. Press the number 1 button so that you can get on hold. Make sure you give the call screener your name. Now, listen, please, ma'am, please, sir, when you ask Mr. Fuller a question, you don't have to go into some long explanation about whatever you're trying to say because it gets diluted. It really does, and we don't know we may not understand what you're talking about. We love your passion, but just make it brief so that Mr. Fuller can directly answer the question. As you well know, Mr. Fuller does take his time by giving examples so that we can be clear. We don't want no confusion. So that's why we're asking to make it short so he can get right to it. So you call this number, that's good. Now, there's another way that you can ask a question, and that is through my Gmail. It is at the numeral 7, Mr. Bobby, Bobby, @gmail.com. Now, it may not be read today, probably won't, especially with a hot subject that we're talking about today. But it will be read at a certain time. I will give you a symbol. I will let you know that it's done and will be read, and, you can, whatever you want to do with that. And lastly, you can do this. You can join the chat room by going to blogtalkradio.com. You want to make sure you click on programs. You do that bad boy, and then the Produce Justice show will come up. You click that bad boy up, and then on the right-hand side, I believe it is, the chat room is available for you to get in there. Get all the way up in there. And, I mean, there are some good subjects and topics going on. This is one way that you learn, opinions and so forth. You don't have to agree with everything that goes in there, but listen, that's how we learn. We're all still learning. All right, you can do all that. Okay. Books and materials that Mr. Fuller is writing can be obtained by going to producejustice.com. Listen, this is my opinion. You need the book. You really do. You need the guide, just like if you drive an automobile or whatever the tool you operate, you need a owner's manual or a guide. This is what the book is. It tells you different things. Mr. Fuller calls them suggestions. You don't have to agree with that, but look at that and read so you'll have some knowledge of what's going on concerning racism, which is white supremacy. All right, I think that's it I have to do. Okay. All right, and don't forget, give the call screener your name because I'm seeing some names. Or rather, I'm seeing some hands being raised, but no names. So please give the call screener your name. Let's go down to Louisiana, and Rasakim is going to be on. Let's do it. You're on with Mr. Fuller. Good morning. Good morning.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Oh, okay. The call screener didn't even come up. So I guess I'm on. Okay, so I have an observation
quickly,
and I have a question for Mr. Fuller.
Okay.
The system of white supremacy. This is the observation. The system of white supremacy causes a lot of people to have mental issues and bad habits. So what can people do about those things, Mr. Fuller?
I would recommend getting the code book. That's exactly what the book is for. It's for victims of white supremacy, a textbook workbook for thought I'm trying to get black people, people of color, to think at another level that they haven't thought of at that level before. Because that's why I started writing a book. I was looking for a book that would put me, I kept hearing the same things over and over again, and looking around, I was seeing the same results, that people were doing the same things over and over again. And they were very weak. I said, we got to break out of this circle. So I started looking for books, started trying to talk to people. So finally I gave up looking for books that would tell me what to do. I say, I hear a whole lot about this and that and how people feel about this and all kind of novels and excellent books that I'm not erasing these books, and I don't want them taken off the shelf either. And that includes books even that some white people wrote, like Huckleberry Finn. That was one of my favorite books, still is, with all that language in there just like it is, because that was like it was then. And I always believe in, I say, hey, that's the first thing I want, something that sounds real, something that at least sounds real, sounds like it's telling the truth, coming close to the truth. Some people say ban Huckleberry Finn. No. Anything that ever happened, I want to know every detail of it, because that's what I call black history. Black history is anything that ever happened since the beginning of time and before. That's how I describe my history. I want to know all of it, every bit of it. Don't erase not one line that anybody ever said or did. And that way you can solve problems. So that's what my book is about. In answer to the question, it's about trying to find the answers to every question that will ever be raised about anything, really, ultimately. That's why I say we should become, our ultimate goal is to be a universal man and universal woman. We don't have that. We got racist man, racist woman, and their victims. That's all we got. For a beautiful planet like this is, if it's handled correctly and people interact with each other correctly, which is what the book that I have put out is trying to do, ultimately, have universal man, universal woman, in tune with everything that is of constructive value in the known universe, not just in the hood or here on this planet. This planet is very small. I'm thinking about the entire universe and our place in it at this time.
Mm-hmm.
And what we're all supposed to be doing. And that's what the textbooks are about. I recommend as a start, in answer to the question, get the textbook for victims of white supremacy. Then we can start changing the entire world. That's what I believe. And I believe my writing is pretty raggedy, I think, by my own evaluation. But I'm doing the best I can with the words I've been given. And I think some people have told me they've gotten quite a bit out of it.
Okay. Well, thank you,
ProduceJustice.com.
From Louisiana. Thank you. Don't be a stranger, my brother. All right, let's go back to Darnell. Let's see if we can get it back together. Darnell, let's see if we can get you in here. Okay, Darnell. Darnell, no? Okay. Darnell, once, twice? No. Okay. Toussaint, Brooklyn, see if we can get you in here. You there, Toussaint?
Yes, sir, I am.
Okay, go ahead with your question. Good morning, Mr. Fuller.
Yes, sir. Good morning, Mr. Bobby. Good morning, Mr. Fuller. My question this morning is, Mr. Fuller, some people tend to find my perspectives in regards to racism. I've been told that they can be pessimistic when operating from a codified perspective and emphasizing the system of white supremacy. And I guess lately I've been wondering, what do you think is most constructive for victims of racism? Do you think that we should walk through life aiming and hoping to be able to achieve whatever it is that we would like to have without discrimination, or should we operate from the perspective of expecting the white supremacists to shut us out from wealth building and make life more difficult for us?
Okay.
All of the above, but the difference is how we conduct ourselves in interactions with each other and with white people. We can't keep doing what we're doing, because why? It's not working, that's why. I looked at television last night, and there's a lot of controversy. They said the race situation, few people said is getting worse instead of better. And I look at it broadly, and it's getting better and it's getting worse. It's like that old saying out of a novel written many years ago, it was the best of times, it was the worst of times. And when you think about it, you can say that about any time. It's the best of times for some people and the worst of times for some people, and sometimes for the same person. In fact, I believe it's true of just one person. You have the best of times and the worst of times. The key is try to have the best of times all the time. And I think it can be done. And some white people begin to say, well, let's just sit down and have a civil conversation without shouting and cursing and everybody talking about, who should blame for this and who should be blamed for that, and not offering any solutions, which is something you seldom hear, if ever. Everybody venting about how they feel. And black people are really excellent at that. Boy, we can wax eloquent for days, nonstop, about how we feel. But when it comes down to, okay, what do you do? Now that's when everybody goes quiet. And then somebody will feebly hold up their hand from the back room. Well, we should get together. And here we go again on that getting together trip.
And do what?
And never get around to the details. Never.
Mm-hmm.
That's like poison. Even white people. I heard a white person who was controversial on an interview last night on television, and I noticed when it came to the doing part, because he was asked that question, and that's what the code book says. Always get to the doing part. We know all about the feeling part. Everybody feeling sad, everybody feeling mad. Okay, we got all about the feelings. Everybody wants to express how they feel. But when you say, okay, what do you do each and every day? What do you say? What do you say to people when they say this? That's what the textbook is about. And, like I said, my writing is not nowhere near quality writing. But I think people will pick up the basis for it somewhere in all that writing, for this concept of always trying to think of the best thing, the best way to think about any problem, because the race problem is a problem, the best way, the absolute best way to think about the problem, the absolute best way to talk about the problem, and third, the absolute twice, 3 times, 4 times, what to do about it on a daily basis by an individual person. What's the best thing to think, the best thing to say in every circumstance? You want to say, out of 10 trillion things you can say, you want to be able to say the best thing in every circumstance. I'm trying to make it very concise and very clear to everybody right now. Mm-hmm. Suppose you were able to, when something came up, somebody brought you a problem, you would have the best way to think about that problem in your mind right now, instantly, out of all the different ways that the problem can be solved, you'd have to, the best way to think about it. And then when you speak to somebody about it, you would say it in such a way that it couldn't be said better. In trillions of years, it could never be said better. That's the kind of words that would come out of your mouth. That when people hear it, in a trillion years, nobody could ever say it better.
Wow.
Think about that. And then last but not least, when it comes to action, you got a problem and you took action to solve that problem could never, ever, in a trillion years, be solved in a better manner than the way that you solved it.
All right.
And I suppose about everybody just thinking on that level, that all black people went around all day long thinking on that level. Now, how can I say this thing that I got to say that it will never be said better than anybody in a trillion years? That means you got to do some thinking before you speak.
Yes, sir. Some thinking.
All right.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Fuller. Thank you, Toussaint.
Right.
Thank you very much. Okay, new caller alert. New caller alert. We're going to go down to one of my cities, Nolens, where Trent and I, when I had my sports show, did a fictitious segment from the fictitious Pelican Bay Bar and Grill in Nolens. We got Stephen. Stephen, you're on with Mr. Fuller. What is your question?
Yes, good morning. Good morning, Mr. Fuller. I want to thank you for last week's topic about the word nigger. When I was a little boy, I was searching for the definition of nigger, and the only word I did find was nigger. I also found the word niggerly and niggerliness in the Bible. I just wanted to ask you if you could elaborate more on the Shawshank Redemption movie lesson when the warden told the prisoners that to put their faith in God because their ass belonged to him. That's my question. Thank you.
All righty. Mr. Fuller?
Well, I'd heard that expression when I was in the Army. And that's what the drill instructors, that was my, along with a lot of other people, introduction right when we got off the bus and being inducted for training. We were told just that, those words. And so it means just what it says, and that's a lesson too, that when you're a prisoner of war, because I always say that that's what black people are here in the year 2023, we're prisoners of war. And it means you're helpless, and a person's just telling you that you have nothing going for you unless I say so. And that's what a warden tells in any prison, in a death camp, which is what a lot of prisoners of war find out, that when they go to a prison in wartime, you're subject to be very dead real quick. You're subject not to last long, from starvation, from a number of things, from being beaten to death. Because the prison masters are just that, prison masters. And when you're in a prison, and the system of white supremacy is a corporate prison, I want to use that word corporate. It's the strongest corporation in the world in 2023, the system of white supremacy. That's the name of it, the system of white supremacy. And it is a prison. And it is a death camp for people of color. You're subject to get killed at any time, and nothing will be done about it except what the white supremacists want done about it, be done about it. Why? Because they are supreme. You can't talk back to the warden and get anywhere with it. As Andy Dufresne in the movie Shawshank Redemption found out. He said something, he just used a word. See, words can get you in trouble. That's why you have to know what to say and when and how, which is what the textbook for victims of white supremacy. is about. We have a word guide. And what happened in that movie, Shawshank Redemption? He told the warden that the warden was obtuse, indirectly, by asking a question. How can you be so obtuse? And the warden said, you're a prisoner and you're calling me a name of something? Calling me obtuse? See, I'll show you obtuse. 1 month in the hole. And then when that month was over, he came down and visited the person who he had put in solitary confinement and made a little speech to him and said, have you thought about calling me obtuse? Well, I'm going to give you another 30 days in solitary confinement to think about it a little bit more. Or am I being obtuse? Then he slammed the door on him again for another 30 days. Now, that prisoner did not go back in the warden's office and call him obtuse again. Why? Because it goes to show you what power really is. When you think you, like a lot of black people think they got some power outside of this prison, the warden says, yeah, you can give your heart to any spirit that you want to. I'll let you black people go to any church, stomp your feet, clap your hands and whatnot. That's on Sunday. On Monday, you better have your black self in here where I told you to be, or you're going to have to reckon with me. Now, you can talk to God all you want to, but when I come around, God has given me an assignment, and that's to stay, that's to keep kicking you in your black behind all over the place. That's what God has told me to do, and I'm doing it. Now, deal with that.
Okay. Whew. Okay. All right. Thank you for the call. Speaking about movies, Mr. Fuller, I don't know if you are aware, but Casablanca, which you highly recommend on your movie list, is being seen particularly this week. I saw the advertisement. One of them is HBO Max, Google Play, iTunes, Amazon, and Vudu. I don't know why that came I don't know why that came up, but they've been really advertising that Casablanca, and I guess whatever you say can be gleaned about that is highly acclaimed. I don't think I've ever watched it fully, but I may want to do that, although I don't have those subscription services. Not me. Not me. But anyway, that's one of the movies that you said that was on your movie list, so maybe I'll get a chance to do that. Okay, representing the great state of New York, we go to Tess. All right, Tess, you are on with Mr. Fuller. What's your question?
Good morning. First, I would want to thank Mr. Fuller, Mr. Bobby, Robert, Sharon, Moonpie, and all those involved in making the show available to us. As well as thank you to the listeners, and those in the chat room. I would like to compliment you, Mr. Bobby, and Mr. Fuller on your excellent time management last week, where a lot of questions were asked and a lot were answered. Mr. Fuller, last broadcast, I asked a question via email. Are the non-white people of the concept known as the North Sentinel Island subject to white supremacy? Do you remember this question, Mr. Fuller?
Well, I don't. I didn't even hear the question when you asked it just then. You might have to slow down just a little bit. What was the question?
Yes, sir. Are the non-white people of the concept known
or
as
non-white people?
Yes, sir. Of the concept.
What's the next?
Of the concept known as the North Sentinel Island.
As the what?
Of the concept known as the North Sentinel Island.
North Central Island?
Sentinel.
Sentinel?
Yes.
Or non-white people, the non-sentinel
Yes.
Island. That's what I'm hearing,
yes.
but it might be not be what you are saying.
No, that's exactly it.
Or non-white people, the non-sensible islands.
I'm sorry, Mr. Fuller. Let me try to bypass all this. Let me go ahead and just ask you a question. If there are non-white people or individuals that are intelligent or non-intelligent, does that play a factor in them being victims of white supremacy?
Oh, absolutely. You know, you're always a victim of someone who is more intelligent than you if they want to make you a victim. Intelligence just means you know how to handle a problem. You know, if you have a problem, you know how to eliminate that problem. And someone is giving you that problem, you know how to outsmart that person or those persons. If it's a group of people, if you become more intelligent at not being mistreated than the people who are trying to mistreat you or who are mistreating you, if you become smarter than they are, they can't mistreat you. Everything comes from intelligence. Intelligence means what? You know how to handle a situation. You know what's going on. You are not anybody's victim. You become a person's victim because the person is smarter than you. That's how you become the victim. If they're deliberately making you a victim and you don't know how to stop them, that person is automatically smarter than you. That's a no-brainer. The victims of white supremacy, Neely Fuller included, have been outsmarted by the people who have made me a victim of white supremacy. And those are the white people who practice white supremacy. They couldn't practice white supremacy against me, make me their victim, if they weren't smarter than me. Now, a lot of people say, well, don't use the word smart. Basically, they're saying because it makes me feel bad. That's what black people say, because they have said just that. You look like you're giving them too much credit. I didn't give them nothing. They took it. Why did they take it? In answer to your question, it outsmarted me. Outsmarted the people that came before me, because I was born in their prison, which means that my quote unquote ancestors got outsmarted by the white supremacist aggressors. I can't change that. That's a part of the history. And I want to know it all and know how it happened. On Black History Month, black people answer a whole lot of questions, but they don't answer that one. How did they get outsmarted? I haven't heard a professor yet say how that happened. Because it happened. If you are a slave to someone else, it means you were outsmarted by the person who made you a slave. You were outsmarted. You didn't know how to prevent being enslaved. That's logic. And then to turn around and then brag about your history, and that's the major part of your history, or a major part, or a significant part, now you've not only gone, you have the status of a slave, but you want to lie to yourself about it, which is the worst thing you can do. When black people brag, we lost bragging rights a long time ago. And when was that time? When we became enslaved to the system of white supremacy. You lost all bragging rights right there.
Absolutely.
On whatever day that happened.
Absolutely. All righty, Tess, thank you for the call. You know better. Don't be a stranger. It's said, and it's true, but people don't want to accept this. It's really simple. It was also just stated in the chat room, and here was the statement. If we implement a system of justice, and not because Fuller said so, but if you understand what's going on, if we said this, if we implement a system of justice, then all this stuff that we're talking about, white supremacy, would not be an issue. But the fact of the matter is, there is no justice. So you have all these problems that we keep going, spinning our wheels, man, or as the Friends of Distinction said, was it going in circles? Anyway, break time. You're listening to the Counter-Racist Code Show with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr. We have about a half hour to go, and we are not going to be going in those circles. We want you to call and give your 2 cents, give your opinion. You can do that by calling 516-453-9921. Press the number 1 button and get in here and get Mr. Fuller to answer your question. Be brief, because you know he will give you a lot of examples so that we can be clear, so we can get an understanding. You can also Gmail me at the numeral 7, Mr. Bobby, BOBBY, @gmail.com. I will give you a symbol when I get it, and then we'll read it at a time when we don't have as many phone calls, so don't be alarmed if it's not read immediately, as some people think it should be read within a 2 or 3 week period. That ain't going to happen. You can also join the chat room, and I'm telling you right now, that bad boy is hot and heavy today, and it's on a good, it's good. Get in there. Go to blogtalkradio.com. You make sure that you want to click on programs, and you'll get the Produce Justice Show. When you do that, you click on that bad boy and get up in there in the chat room and give your 2 cents, or you can listen and learn. Listen and learn, because we're all still learning. Don't forget, this is important, especially for Mr. Fuller. Don't forget, get the book, the code book, the Independent Compensatory Code System Concept. You can get that by going to producejustice.com, producejustice.com. And if you don't know what that means, maybe we'll have Mr. Fuller tell you what justice is, especially or particularly since he could not find that in the dictionary. He'll give you the compensatory definition of justice. It's also in the code book, which you need. All right? All righty. I believe that's it. Get up in that chat room, though. You need to do that. All righty. Let's get back to the action. And Ray. Come on, Ray, up there in the big D. Go ahead, Ray. Wait a minute. Okay, there you go. Ray, you're on.
Yes, Mr. Fuller, how do soldiers become comfortable with the possibility of death when they are on the battlefield?
Because you're on the battlefield. And depends on what you mean by comfort. People always, all creatures seek comfort in every circumstance. That's one of the 3 things that all creatures do. They want fun, if they can have it, if they're in a situation. All creatures, including people, birds, ants, squirrels, and people, want to have 3 things. I call it the 3 wants that everybody in average minds, you might say, just the average mind of any creature, whether it's animal or people, they want 3 things. Because you want something every minute that you're awake. You want something. There's something you want. But the words that cover the basic wants, according to the code, are as follows. Fun, as having fun, whatever form it takes. Some type of fun. You want that. It can come under the heading of fun. Number 2, glory. In other words, you want to be well thought of by something or someone, some creature, some person. You know, people, somebody once said, why do people like dogs? And the answer is, because some dogs act like they like people. Some people say that I want a dog because the dog shows more affection, more attention toward me. I don't want a cat because cats act like they don't care much about nothing other than mealtime and getting cat naps. And other than that, they don't pay no attention to much of nothing. And they might be curious about something. So you got fun, and you got glory, being well thought of by something or someone, some creature, some person, some animal. And then the third is, now I'm having one of my senior moments.
That's all right.
Material comfort, like I started to say in the beginning. Fun, glory, material comfort. It's in the textbook for victims of white supremacy. Those 3 wants. That's something you want all the time, every minute of the day. You want something to be fun, and you want to be well thought of. That's why, since we're talking about a battlefield situation here, that's why soldiers want to be decorated. They want to be well thought. Hey, I took that machine gun nest. I knocked it out. You know, I threw a grenade in there. And, I mean, the enemy that was pinning us down and killing all my comrades, I mean, I killed them. I know, and I want somebody to recognize me for what I did. Okay? So you stand there and get your medals on your chest and all like that for killing. Particularly, that's a lot of that goes on in the system of white supremacy. I mean, they love it. Glory. Well thought of. Battlefield. They want to be thought of well on the battlefield. You know, with all the killing going on, they still want to be thought of well. And actually, they try to train you to have fun doing it. That first thing. And then the material comfort, well, you have a whole lot of material discomfort on the battlefield. But you try to make yourself as comfortable as you possibly can. Like in World War II, a lot of people, when people used to, I mean, huge numbers of people used to smoke cigarettes. So even on a battlefield, whenever there's a little lull, what would soldiers do? Because that's what I've seen them do. I didn't do it. They gave me free cigarettes. I gave them away because I didn't smoke. Never did. And they also had whiskey ration. And that was on a battlefield when I was a soldier. And beer, every now and then, on a battlefield. That is comfort. It gave a lot of people comfort. I don't drink beer. I gave away my beer ration. It was free. The Army provided beer. Here you are on the battlefield and they're bringing you beer. Why? Because they figure you get a little bit of comfort, have a little bit of fun with the beer and the cigarettes. You fight better. Why? That's your comfort zone. A lot of people say, I got to have a cigarette. You know, I might not be a good soldier if I don't have a cigarette. You're killing your lungs. One of the things you depend on to really be a soldier, being able to breathe. cigarettes said, hey, this is a bonanza. I'll make a lot of money selling to a ready market. That is the military. So load them soldiers up, sailors, Marines, with cigarettes. I might be kind of digressing now, but I hope I'm making the point.
Okay.
Fun, glory, material comfort.
Yes, sir.
Everybody wants these three things. Everybody. No exceptions to that.
Mm-hmm. All right. Thank you, Ray. Thank you, Ray. Thank you very, very much. I'm going to keep you on the line, Ray. All right, Terrence. Terrence, let's see here. Let's get you in here, Terrence. Wait a minute. In Tennessee, it says here, but anyway, you're on, Terrence, with Mr. Fuller. What is your question?
Hey, good morning, Mr. Bobby. Good morning, Mr. Fuller.
You have to speak up. We can't hear you.
Okay.
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, can you hear me better now?
Yeah, we can hear you. Go ahead.
Okay, thanks. Well, good morning to both of you. Okay, so I was thinking about the three wants, fun, glory, and material comfort. And I also was thinking about how do we change what we want and change our wants to be more in line with being universal man. Because I think Mr. Fuller used to say about the thing about white about supremacy is the things that they give us we're so addicted to. So, Mr. Fuller, how do we change our wants, those three wants, how do we change those to line up with becoming universal man, or more like universal man?
All right. Mr. Fuller?
Well, there's so many of them, characteristics of universal man, universal woman, and we don't have any examples. So the textbook for victims of white supremacy that you can get by going to producejustice.com has some examples. You just see it in the index there of a universal man, universal woman. I forgot the page numbers. They're not here right in front of me right now. But that would be an excellent start. Like anything, you set a sort of a blueprint, and then you aim toward fulfilling what the blueprint is for. And that's what the entire textbook is about. It's a blueprint, you know. And so you say, well, now, I ain't going to stop doing this, and I ain't going to start doing that. But that's the process. And you do it on your own. So you don't have to answer to anybody but yourself. And you say, I want to be a universal man. That's how do you get that want? By making that decision. So you can make a decision about what you will want and what you don't want. Just like when you go in a cafe, a restaurant, a sandwich shop. You say, well, I usually drink coffee, but I'm going to stop drinking coffee. I'm going to drink pure orange juice. Why? Because my doctor told me that caffeine in the coffee was not good for me. So you make a decision. You can ignore the doctor's advice, or you can keep drinking the coffee. Caffeine, for some reason in your body, it doesn't go together. It doesn't work for you. It makes you sick. And so you get tired of being sick. So you start drinking orange juice, and you don't particularly care for orange juice. But you get it anyway, and you learn to like it. Like most things people do, if they do it often enough. So that's how you do it in answer to the question. You got to pinpoint. You say, today is the first day to use an old slang of the rest of my life. And start right this minute. I'm going to start I'm going to start today toward being a universal man. Or if you're a female, I'm going to start toward being a universal woman. Meaning what? Words have definitions. The code book gives a definition. people who are totally constructive in everything that they do and think, do, and say. Think, say, and do. Totally constructive. And you just look at all the things you do that are not constructive and say, I'm going to stop doing this right this minute, and I'm going to start doing everything that I can think of, everything that's been gone before me, or everything I can invent that is of constructive value, starting right this minute. And that's the compensatory process. Compensatory means making up for what's missing.
Yes.
Like unemployment compensation. It means I'm not this way now, but I'm going to start this minute to compensate for the way that I have been. I'm going to start being the way that I should be, because the way that I have been hasn't worked too well.
Mm-hmm. All righty. All right. Thank you, Terrence. Appreciate the call here. Going to try this again. Darnell, let's see if we can get you in here this time. Darnell, third time. Is it a charm? Let's see. Darnell, are you there?
Yes. Good morning, Mr. Bobby. Can you hear me better now?
Yes.
All right. Mr. Fuller, my question is, why is it important for the victims of white supremacy to always tell the truth?
It's important to always tell the truth when it produces a constructive result. That's according to the code. And it's important to produce constructive results in anything that you do. And that's just one of them. Truth means that which is. That's the compensatory definition. That which is what? That which is whatever it is. We have a slang expression for that goes way back. Tell it like it is. Don't tell it like it ain't. If you're going to tell it. Otherwise, don't tell it. You don't always tell the truth, because you might be dealing with an enemy and you tell that enemy the truth. Under some circumstances, context is important here. So you just don't say anything at all, but don't say anything that's not true. It's recognizing the truth, but doing it in a way where you're non-verbal about it. It's because there's a vacancy here, you just leave that open. But if you say it, always tell the truth. Otherwise, don't say it. Just leave that blank. Because when you get in the habit of not telling the truth, when you do speak, it doesn't take long for you, if you're dealing in falsehood, you're not making the world a better place. You are making it a more evil place, like the white supremacists have done, because they love to lie. They make jokes about it. They thrive on it. And they teach their victims to lie, first of all, to themselves. The white supremacists teach black people to lie to themselves about themselves. And they know that if they're successful at doing that, as long as they are, they can control black people.
Yes.
Because once you start lying to yourself, you're through booking. The white supremacists understand that.
Okay.
So they want black people to think that they're strong when they know that black people are weak. Every football coach understands that principle. And every football player, black ones, understand that when they're playing football. But too many of us, truth be told, when we get off the field, that kind of understanding leaves us completely. And we wind up in court about some Mickey Mouse stuff and lose the contract for next year and everything behind some ghetto nonsense.
Yeah, like carrying a gun and flashing it on Instagram or whatever. Yeah, everybody knows what I'm talking about. All right, thank you, Darnell. Thank you, Darnell, for your question. Okay, Chris in Kansas City, home of the new airport out there. Okay, Chris, let's do it. You're in.
Yeah, Bobby and Dr. Fuller, this is more of a VGQ, and it's related to Dr. Fuller saying that white supremacy is the strongest religion on the planet. I was thinking, Bobby, when the U.S. military was trying to pull out of Afghanistan, there were Afghans hanging on to the wheels of those military support support planes leaving the airport in Afghanistan. And these Afghans, Bobby and Mr. Fuller, they weren't asking Muhammad or Allah to save them. They were asking, where did the white people go? Which is mostly where most people of color all over the planet, they're not looking to their gods to save them. They're asking the same question, where did the white people go? That's my 2 cents. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. They did that same stuff in the fall of Saigon when the helicopter came, and a lot of people landed on that, or rather try to hang on as the concept, the Army or whoever it was, pulled out of South Vietnam. I can still see it in my mind. And now they over here selling stuff. Mr. Fuller, time to talk about your book.
Yes. This whole conversation we've been having, questions and answers, that's the way it's supposed to go, is primarily based on thinking that I put in writing in the textbook for victims of white supremacy. My original copy was put out in 1984. Actually, the manuscript is what I carried around for years, and that goes back to the late 1950s.
Okay.
So the last volume now, the revised expanded edition, was in 2016, and an additional volume to the basic volume, basically it's the same book, is in a compensatory counter-racist codified word guide, how to use words, how to define them. Like I have a compensatory word, definition rather, for the word justice, because this volume changes the definitions of words, which you can do. And people sometimes ask me, you can't do that. I say, I just did it. So that's not true. You can't say, yeah, but nobody will accept it. I say, well, that's two different things. I said, but when you look at the definition I have for justice, I think it's more logical than any definition that I have seen yet. So that word justice is in the word guide, compensatory word guide, codified word guide. And you can get the volumes by going to producejustice.com.
Yes.
Because words are tools. That's all words are. They're tools. And what are tools for? What is a tool? A tool is to accomplish a task. And that's all a word is. You're trying to accomplish something. And what am I trying to accomplish with a compensatory word guide? I'm trying to help to have the tools so that when you speak and use these words, if the words, when they hit somebody's mind and they think about them and start using them, will help, directly or indirectly, to replace the system of white supremacy with the system of justice. It's not the only tool, the action got to be behind that. So the textbook workbook is called Textbook Workbook for Victims of White Supremacy, How to Think, How to Speak, and How to Act. Thought, speech, action. And words, the speech part, sometimes you have to tinker with the words in such a way that they reveal what? Truth, rather than falsehood, or they are less confusing than the words you usually use. The white supremacists are masters of that type of thing. So that's an addition to the basic volume of the code book that you can get by going to producejustice.com.
Okay.
That edition is called a Word Guide.
Word Guide. All right. Producejustice.com. Okay, we're getting ready to wrap it up. We got 2 more to go. Mr. Fuller, we'd like to get these callers in, so we may go over a few moments. Is that okay with you? I have to
go
ask
right ahead, sir.
Okay.
Right.
Robert, whoever's behind the board, give me a few minutes to get these 2 more calls in. And let's go right quickly to Cleveland. Mike. Mike, you're on with Mr. Fuller. Go ahead, please.
Can you hear me?
Mike, you're on with Mr. Fuller. Go ahead, please.
Can you hear me all right?
Mike, you're on with Mr. Fuller. Go ahead, please. Okay. True, in Atlanta, you're on with Mr. Fuller. Go ahead, please.
Yes, I was calling to ask Mr. Fuller. I was hearing that it's more constructive to say racism rather than white supremacy. And it seems that Mr. Fuller came to this conclusion also because he did not put white supremacy on the front of his book. He calls it racism. Because it's the race that's the problem. It's competing.
Is that your statement, ma'am?
It's my question to Mr. Fuller. Is it not more constructive to say racism to replace the word racism to replace white supremacy with racism? Okay,
I got it. All right. Just hang on there. Mr. Fuller, what is that you say every program that I've had with you, even at the beginning of this program, what is that statement that you have at the beginning of every book or every program that we have? If you do not understand, could you repeat that so that...
If you do not understand white supremacy, parenthesis, racism, because what I'm saying is white supremacy is racism. Racism is white supremacy. They both go together. They don't separate them. There is no other form of racism other than white supremacy. And why is this? Because you can't have any other type of supremacy other than supremacy if you're talking about race. You have black supremacy or some other type of supremacy. They don't exist. Not in a system of white supremacy. You can't have 2 supremes. When it comes to mistreating people on the basis of color, the white supremacists are the masters of that. Master, supreme, same thing. Mistreating people on the basis of color. There's no other race. The white supremacists told people that they are members of a race. That's not true. The white supremacists are the only race, the white race. And they're the only race, if you're talking about mistreating people on the basis of color, dominating and mistreating. And that's the correct term for it. Race is racism. If you're a member of a race, you practice racism. There's no other reason for it. According to what? Compensatory counter-racist logic. If it's going to be against racism, that's where you set it up, and you stick with it. Otherwise, you're going to get confused.
Okay. Now, before we go, Mr. Fuller, could you repeat the phrase that you say on every program and including this one. Yes.
If you do not understand white supremacy, what it is and how it works, everything else that you understand will only confuse you. That's everything else that you understand will only confuse you, because the system of white supremacy is the most powerful system of mind control ever produced in recorded history among the people of the entire known universe.
Okay.
That's either true or false.
All righty. Well, listen, we have come to the conclusion of the program. Sorry, Black Power down in Florida. True was going to be our last caller of the day. Maybe you can get in next week, and if you say that you were the last caller, they'll expedite you to the front of the line. We thank everybody for listening to the program today. Sorry we didn't get to some of your calls, but hopefully we can do that next week. We made a lot of mistakes today. The gremlins were out, but guess what? We made it through. So we thank you for all of your calls, however they were, all the chats in the chat room, all the opinions that you gave. We thank you. We thank you, Mr. Fuller. We thank all the people who helped put this together. We hope to do a better job next week. Don't forget, information and tools can be obtained by going to producejustice.com. That's producejustice.com. Mr. Fuller, you get the last word.
That's the last word. And I have made mistakes, and we can correct them in the next program, because we don't let any mistakes go non-corrected, I think.
All righty.
I don't know if I made any or not, but I think I might have made some.
Okay. All right. Hopefully we'll see you next week. Everybody have a good week. Thank you.
All right. Sure.